Hi, Mahesh. Good morning.
Hi, Debasish.
Excellent, excellent.
Morning. So,
Good. And
thank, thank you for having me on your show. I've seen a couple of your interviews, and so I've been following you. Now, after that, I've been following you on all the previous things. I've been seeing what you're doing. Good selection of people that you get. So I'm glad and happy to be on the show.
wonderful. Yes, and I'm very glad to have you with me. Excellent. And the idea of this show is to fill a gap in the YouTube space. That is, we all treat corporate culture as a very formal kind of a thing, which has to be dealt with a lot of structure and PowerPoint presentations, etc. So it becomes intimidating to people who are on the fringe, maybe something like students or small businesses, or maybe employees of large corporations who have not come from premier education and who don't know how to mouth the right jargon. So that should not be the case. We feel that it should be a more inclusive environment where everybody should come in and everybody should discuss. And creative solutions only come up when all segments in a certain industry or a certain environment discuss with each other. I think you agree, right?
Yeah, totally. And what's your audience like, Debasish?
The audience is purely people who are interested in solving problems in companies. It ranges from CEOs to middle management to vice president level people, as well as small businesses which are trying to grow big. And this is across the globe. All over India, of course, but at the same time, in countries like in the Indo-Asian region, a lot of people view that, and somewhere in Southern Europe has a lot of viewers. So it's something that not has, as I said, it's not been addressed by other YouTube channels. Generally, it's all about either it's film stars or it's politicians or it's politics. And whenever it comes to corporate culture, it's not been addressed in that inclusive environment. It's always a very formal, structured kind of a thing.
I agree, and I think there used to be a lot of TV shows with this, but I think from a YouTube perspective, I think there is not too much in that space. So I think that's a good space to be in from your perspective to.
Absolutely. What happens is the viewership slowly picks up, and but whatever viewership comes up, it's a very sticky viewership. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Unlike other channels where the viewership declines or rises with some sort of a nightclub kind of a wave, where you get a single SMS or a WhatsApp message. Oh, this nightclub is hot. So everybody moves on. So it's not that kind of a viewership. It's a sticky viewership. So Prerna is your colleague?
Yeah, Prerna is my colleague.
Hi, Debashish. I'm from the marketing team. Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful. I also would like to request you to switch on your video, because this is going to feature in YouTube. It's going to look odd with just your name being featured there. So let's have another face on it.
Okay, then in that case, I would switch off, because I would really want Mr. Aiyer to be a face of this interview. And okay. I would switch off. Yeah. And then we'll connect after the interview is done.
Definitely. Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debashish, how much time do we have?
Are you in a hurry?
I'm not in a hurry. I just want to pace it in a way that is useful for your viewers and not give too much, because I think the longer it gets, I think the dropout happens for you. Absolutely. So I want to be very cognizant of the fact that then I add value to your channel.
Exactly.
Which is not required. So I want to be very specific, so that's why I asked. I have slotted 45 minutes, but I think it could be too long for your viewers. So I want to be enough for the viewers to hold on. Otherwise, then they'll drop off halfway, right? So
yes. So my experience is 20 minutes to half an hour is the ideal slot. Less than 20 minutes, it becomes too small. More than half an hour, it becomes too long.
So let's keep it at half an hour, and then we'll try and wrap up as much as possible in the short time that we have.
Right. So, I can see the 5 pointers that I can see in your education. 2 of them are your full-time courses, as I can term them.
Yeah.
University of Madras and MBA, and then University of Calicut BTech. And
Yeah.
then after that, three of the others are leadership programs or management programs.
Correct.
So, just tell me briefly, how does it affect somebody's career? And objectively, it's not just your career. Let's say anybody's career. Is it necessary to have these management programs on your CV? How does it help? How does it affect you? And how does it affect the organization? Could you just let me know?
My personal view is that I did my engineering because in South India, you have to be an engineer, doctor, or nobody. So,
especially if you're an Iyer.
Especially if you're an Iyer. So, I had to do that. And so, and then I was very keen on advertising. That's what my first love, and I was doing projects in Lintas. Let me say, so I joined MBA as a natural course because you like the space. Because the first 4 years is because your parents asked you to do.
Right.
The next one is because you want to do, because you like it. So I did my project in Lintas during my MBA time. So I was happy with advertising. I wanted to be in advertising. I went to a Taj Coromandel lobby and I just fell in love with the hotel. So I went and asked for a job. So they couldn't find anything because I was an engineer and an MBA. They were hotel management people. They said, "What will you do?" And somehow fortunately, I got a job in sales in the Taj. So to answer your question, does it help you get an entry? Yes, it does. Does it help you understand concepts? Yes, it does. But at the end of the day, I think all these doesn't matter. It's about what you really love to do and what you are good at. So you have to really know what you're good at, and that requires trial and errors also, and also a little bit of understanding of who you are. And then half is chance, right? You give half your best, and then half things fall in place.
Absolutely.
So to answer your question, yes, it is good for learning and understanding, not from a CV perspective or a stamp perspective. I don't believe that. If you are good and knowledgeable and passionate on the subject, then that is more important than all these education. That's my personal view. I know people who have done much less but are so much passionate about what they do. My view, that is more important.
Excellent. So the substance over the label.
Yeah, and I think you need to figure out what you want to do. I think so. Sometimes it happens like me, that it happens that yes, I joined something and then I liked, so I stayed back in hotel industry for so long and been marinated in the hotel. For some people, it may not suit, so they have to find their own path and figure out what is the slot they really want to do. So that's where it is.
You said something very interesting, that you were working and doing projects with an advertising agency.
Yeah.
So there is obviously a creative streak in you. I suppose you were in creatives, right? Copywriting or something like that.
No, I was on the other side of going and getting run by the customers. This is a client side of it.
Okay. So you were in sales.
I have a creative strength and that streak in me. So it helped that way when you're understanding a customer, what the customer wants to communicate, and tell the creative team what they want. So that communication becomes important from a understanding point of view. So it helps both ways.
Exactly. So for example, in an environment of advertising agency, you're talking to the customer and you're passing it on to the internal client and to the person, internal team. So this becomes a very direct kind of a line of communication, unlike the hospitality industry, where you have to be in an indirect line of communication and to study the industry and the trends in the industry. For instance, let's say comparing 70s domestic tourism to 2010 domestic tourism, it's a heaven and hell difference. Those days when we were kids, the only domestic tourism that happened was religious tourism. Anybody going somewhere was, going either to Tirupati or to Hardwar or whatever. There was I clearly remember there was nothing else. Whoever is going anywhere, and he's going to a mandir or an ashram or something like that, and on the way, some sort of an eatery. So hotels came up little before and little after Incredible India, and then it sort of skyrocketed, and now the concept is very much different. There is no guilt in the middle class family saying that we are going on a holiday and we are splurging, we're spending. So there's the ability to show off today is very much different from what happened in the 70s and the 80s. So this kind of a trend, talking to the customer very, very indirectly and identifying what the needs are and passing it on. So that obviously you have a role in top management in one of the top leading brands of the country.
So you know what you have to. So you're asking the question: how do you understand what customers want at a macro level? That's your question, right?
Yes, yes.
So we listen to customers all the time. Both we are in touch directly with customers also. I am in touch with many customers directly. I speak to customers, at least 7 or 8 customers at my level also daily. So you are in touch with customers. Our teams are in touch with customers. And there is today enough feedback that is coming on online channels in writing. Earlier, there was no option for you to analyze customer feedback. Today, you have listening posts everywhere. At the hotel where they are staying, you have listening posts. We have feedback system mechanism. Then they have the reviews that go online. So if you cull all, and then our teams are in touch with together everywhere. So if you cull all these things together, there is enough and more data to even put a. If you want to put a hotel, also there is enough feedback. Why are you not having a hotel in X place? Absolutely. If many customers start saying it, then I can see that there is a constant feedback coming. They can always say that, I don't like this in a hotel. I like this in a hotel. So it helps me design hotels better. If they do feedback that XYZ, this breakfast needs to be added this, then if it's a predominant feedback, then I can implement as part of my process. So it's a very potent information feedback system that you have, where across the board, if you collate all of them and analyze it properly, it is very, very potent. So today, I think it's better I have enough information today to design my processes or hotels or locations or growth or changing training programs, everything based on this feedback. So see, for us, I think customer at the center of the business, right? Absolutely. And he dictates what he wants, what is the need. So there are some needs which are said, there are some needs which are unsaid. True. So you'll have to see what is the feedback. Like today, latest feedback which is coming is that give me EV charging station in hotels.
Sorry, come again.
They are coming by EV charging station. Like so today, when I'm designing a new hotel, then I have to make sure that all the hotels have EV, because in the future, most cars will be electric vehicles. So you need to have charging points today. It was never designed before. Many hotels were not designed before. So we are now incorporating. These are feedback that you actually get from customers, either being on the floor or hearing from your teams who are on the floor, or the customers themselves who are giving feedback at the hotel or publicly. So, and it necessarily doesn't mean our own hotel feedback. I can look, supposing I'm designing a hotel in a wildlife resort, I can see feedback from Africa, I can see feedback from India, what are the things they want, what do they really want, and then put a product together to design it. So there is, today, it's much more complicated and easier, I think, today. More content is there today, but you have to just kind of analyze it in a way that is useful for customers as well as the company.
Something that you said was very interesting, that some are said and some are unsaid, the feedback. So the unsaid part is shown by choices. The customer might be making a choice and therefore expressing the feedback without saying it. So it brings me to my next question. As you said, sources of data and sources of feedback are a dime a dozen today. All you have to do is collate it and translate it into action. Uh, Despite that, there are many. I mean, I'm not, obviously not going to name names. There are many hotel chains right here in India which don't go into that feedback. For instance, me and my wife are avid, visitors to hotels all over India, and we, as you said, wildlife resort. I personally love going to wildlife resorts, and I've been going since there were no hotels in India. So since that time, so there are certain hotel chains which have really fallen by the wayside as far as customer experience goes. What happens, which are the pitfalls they fall into, where despite having so much data around them and despite having such a wonderful brand name and despite having that flow of feedback coming in every now and then, they somehow fail to translate into action, and every time the customer is disappointed. What happens? Where do they fail? Likely to.
I think so. So I think it starts with intent, right? So if you have a culture of customer centricity, and it starts from the top. Today, yeah, it starts from the leadership. So today, right from our chairman to our senior leadership, they see every single guest feedback of all our 87 hotels.
Wonderful.
So every single feedback, okay, that is at individual feedback level. Then at the month-end level, you're trying to gather all this data and figure out what is missing, what are the key issues, what are the positives that we can take from one place to another. So to answer your question, I think one is about culture and the intent and the intensity that you focus on.
Right.
Second is you have to have processes and systems to back this up, because you can have great intent, but at the same time, you can't, if you don't have the right processes, then you will not be able to analyze it and implement it and review it. And if you review it on a monthly basis, okay, these are the 10, supposing I'm taking an example, X hotel that you stayed. If I were to go into that hotel and just say, give me all the past data that of customer complaints that you have, plot it and say, yeah, which are your top 10? I want to address these top 10 immediately.
Okay.
What are let's attack them. What is critical? Top 3. What can we do about this top 10? I can't do, maybe some room sizes are small. I can't do anything much with that because this is what I have. Right? What can I do with? These are the 4 or 5 things I can immediately attack. Now that will be then my focal point in the next 2 months to just eradicate. So it comes with intent. It comes with process and systems that you have. So the intent, then the culturally, then everybody right at the staff level need to kind of know that this is important. That is one thing. But the other thing in the hotel industry is the employee side, right? A happy employee or an engaged employee
Absolutely.
actually leads to a happy customer. Right? So the culture of engaging employees in the satisfaction of customers, because actually employees today wake up, don't come and say, I want to screw this customer's happiness, right? They come, they want to do their best.
Correct.
You have to provide a culture setting and an environment in which they thrive. And they're not coming to say, yeah, let me just come and, I'll do my job averagely and go. Their intent is to come and do something good. Because when you delight a customer, apart from the customer being happy, the second person who's most happy is the guy who's delivered the service.
True, absolutely. That enjoyment of having a job well done.
Job well done, right? And then there are different processes of the employee side. So I said about the customer side, right? The employee side, right from the way, the kind of people who you recruit, the right kind of mindset that you get those employees come in, the right set of training programs that you give them, the right set of environment and culture and importance and communicating the values of the organization to these employees, and then monitoring how they are doing well, and if they are doing extremely well, rewarding them or appreciating them in some form, so that they know that they are doing extremely well. So that piece is extremely critical to delivering customer satisfaction.
True.
So it's both end. It's just if you do one part, you will not be, and the employee is completely not engaged. In a hotel industry, you will not survive. Definitely not survive. So it's a mix of both that you need. You need to have customer intensity to get this Results, you need to have employees who are completely engaged.
Excellent.
So,
yeah. And in other industries, maybe 70 to 80% people are behind the scenes. In the hotel industry, it's just the other way around. 70 to 80% of the industry is, are always in direct customer contact. So, as you said, engagement with the
I think it's maybe I would say about 50%, but 50-60%, but a lot of people behind the scene.
Right.
See, for me, it's like a football match, right? Anybody can hit a goal, which is satisfying the customer. But there are a lot of passes which are happening behind
Absolutely.
to ensure that the customer is satisfied. An engineering guy doing a great job of a room so that you enter the room and there is no error in that room. A housekeeping guy who's cleaning the room when you're not there, not seen in the face, but ensuring that everything that you're there, want is there, and what you have not thought also there. He goes through the rooms. He understands that you're consuming XYZ. I put more of that. All of these little things matter. At the kitchen staff who are ensuring that the food is delivered. So a lot of backend goes into delivering customer service also. So for me, it's not a single individual tennis game. Football, it's a football for me. You have to pass on so that the goal is hit, irrespective of who hits the goal.
Right? The Lemon Tree brand is obviously into a win-win. Sorry, I interrupted. You were saying something?
No, that's what I was saying. That's critical. As a teamwork is extremely critical in our business, because if one place, for example, in something has gone wrong with the food, for example, if there is no teamwork, then the customer recovery will not happen at other departments. If you don't communicate that there is a problem here, right? So communication is critical. Teamwork is critical in our business, and the whole environment of customer sensitivity, employee engagement, that whole piece has to come together for you to deliver excellence.
I run a lot of, I run a successful foodie group on Facebook. So the latest input that I was reading was a famous brand restaurant. People entered and they were given beer beyond the expiry date. So when they drank it, it seemed flat, and then they noticed that it had expired. So then they pointed it out. The manager of the restaurant said that no, it's a typo. It's a misprint on the bottle. So that takes the cake, Well, first you screw the customer and then you screw him doubly.
So I don't think the manager is at fault. I think the problem is with the ownership and the senior leadership in that bar or bar.
Yes, absolutely.
If you have communicated and have systems to check expiry date, it should never come out. Because there are systems which will pop up and say, yeah, this beer is going to expire in the next 5 days. Either you consume it or throw it, right? And if the ownership and the senior leaderships give importance to this issue, saying that no way can I serve expired food because it's non-compliant law. As per law, it is not compliant, right? So you give that importance to that onto that topic, and the manager will ever not have any beer being served which is expired. The second thing is, if you're an owner who will say, "Yeah, this beer is getting expired and it's going to cost me so much," it's okay, push it. If there was an owner, then obviously such things will happen, right? So it is important. What is the soul of that place? What is the soul? What is the value system that is in that bar that you went? So
that manager's response was also showing that he doesn't have any other recourse. He doesn't have any other way to solve that problem.
So I think that is another question of empowerment, right? So in service business, you have to take instant decisions in the front. If you keep all the decisions at the top, the employee will feel completely disillusioned because he doesn't have the authority or the empowerment to do anything in the front. So it's important to give that empowerment level to the staff to say, yeah, this is what you can do. At any cost, I want the customer who's going out to be extremely satisfied. That's your end goal. Now you do whatever you want.
Correct.
You can explain to me later what you did, but I want the goal to be that you will, first of all, don't make errors. But if you make an error, it happens in the best of hotels that some error or the other happens because it's a people business at the end of the day. But recover the customer and at any cost, the guy needs to go out of the of your outlet,
Right.
being extremely satisfied with, and you try your 100% best. At times, it's not possible to satisfy everybody.
True.
You do your best to ensure that the customers. So I think the issue there in that place is a multiple. The process problem, it's a ownership problem, it's a direction problem. So it's not one dimension there. It's a multi-dimension problem in that specific instance. So this is how we analyze instances. You said about one instance, right? This is how we analyze every little thing. What are the different perspectives to this problem? Is it a process? Is it a process problem? It's a people problem. It's a leadership problem. It's a recurring problem. So how do you sort these problems?
So clearly the Lemon Tree brand is in a win-win kind of a role, because right now in the other tab of the browser, it's showing me a return of 32% on the stock market. So amazing. So that's not unprecedented.
Stock market is not, it's just a representation. We do our job, and at the end of the day,
stock market is a reflection of the brand value. Where it's a perception game. Stock market has nothing but perception. There are many companies which are not making big profits, but the perception is very high. Therefore, they are making profits on the stock market. And similarly,
our job in senior leadership is to do our best job possible.
True.
Remaining, that markets can decide what they want, but our job is to ensure that we do our best.
Correct. So, for instance, one of the latest outlets that I was dealing with is the Bandhavgarh outlet. You have a very beautiful Bandhavgarh outlet, and my wife also visited the Pune outlet. So we were struck in the last 5 years with the growth of the Lemon Tree brand, and a very consistent and a very sustained kind of a growth, where every single, as you said, every single sales manager to the customer service manager is very empowered, which used to be the case in 60s, 70s Taj, or let's say Trident.
I worked at Taj for 20 years before I joined.
Absolutely. And you sort of shuttled between the north and the south and gathered a lot of varied experience in the Taj and one stint in Malaysia. So obviously, very rich experience. Wonderful to.
You were saying something on Lemon Tree win-win.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
So it's very difficult to sustain it beyond 10 years. But I've seen Lemon Tree, the brand, growing consistently in a very sustained manner. And recently in Calcutta, I brought some guests, and we had one in Newtown. So there again, the same experience. The sales manager down to the customer service manager, very empowered, very excellent. So you are also in charge of new properties, right? Development of the hotels, etc. So that entails a lot of investment. So any kind of decision makers or triggers of taking decisions in that area of how to develop, where to develop, and what kind to develop. Can you tell us about that?
So I'll give you a quick, I have to step back, okay, and say how as a company we grew and why we grew, for your as well as the readers to understand what's the background to this.
Mm-hmm.
See, we started this company in 2002. We started the company in 2002.
Okay.
What was the premise of our starting this company? See, at that point of time, you look at, there were about 20 odd million travelers in train who were going in train. 10% of them maybe needed branded hotels. I'm assuming that 10% of them. There were about 300,000 Indians flying on a flight, and maybe half of them were going back home, and the half of them maybe needed hotels. There were about 70 odd thousand or 80 odd thousand Indian people who were foreigners in India. They all needed a bed to sleep, right? So if you just add all of these together, there were about 450 odd thousand beds needed for them to sleep.
Right.
What was available in India in the branded space? The branded space had 140,000 rooms at that time.
True.
Right? So, and if you see the structure of this 140,000 rooms, which was already available, 60-70% of them were 5 stars.
Correct.
Which means that it's like the analogy saying, supposing you have a flight, and 2/3 of the seats are business class.
Yes.
And 1/3 is economy. can you imagine what could have happened? So that was the case when we started this company. So the premise was there is a large market for mid-market hotels in India. And what was our premise? Our model or our strength, I would say, was that we said, okay, we would build a hotel at 1/3 the cost of a 5-star. We would operate this at 1/3 of the cost of a 5-star.
Right.
And we would get almost 60% of the, or 50-60% of the revenues of a 5-star, because our occupancy would be higher compared to a 5-star. And our EBITDA or would be about 70-80% of a 5-star, which what it translates to is that for every single 5-star you put, you could make the same cost, you could make 3 lemon tree hotels.
Right.
And your EBITDA would be at least 2.5 times of this single hotel of a 5-star. That was the premise that we went saying that we were very good at building hotels at much cheaper costs. We were good at, and still we are, I think in an industry, I think we are very good at operating at good cost margins. So that was our premise. So we started this company in 2002. The first hotel came up in 2004, a 49-room hotel in Udyog Vihar. Right. 2006 is when we got investment from one of our earlier investors called Warburg Pincus. Right. 2007. So 2004 one hotel. 2007 we had 5 hotels already. 2009, which is in 2 years, we had 10 hotels. So from 5 to 10 we moved in span of 2 years. And we launched a branch called Red Fox during that time. 2012, we had a investment from our pension fund APG, which is one of the largest pension funds. And plus, we started the asset light model of managing other hotels. Earlier, we were fully building our own hotels. Then we started managing our hotels. So what happened from 2007, 5th hotel, 2014, in 7 years, we went 5 hotels. 2009 we were 10 hotels. From 2009 10 hotels we went to 2014 25 hotels.
So it was purely leadership which drove you, because at that time when you identified that market, I believe there were about 7 or 8 small hospitality companies which also were there in existence, but they somehow failed to notice that target market as well as grow at your pace in a very structured and cost-effective manner, right? So it was the leadership.
I'll explain to you how that happened. So quickly, 2014 we were 25 hotels. 2018 we went public with 50 hotels. 2019 we were 75 hotels. 2022 we are at 87 hotels today at 8,500. So, and we've grown rapidly to 54 destinations, from 1 destination to 54 destinations in the last say 20 years. So actually complete 20 years of forming the company. So what has led to this growth? So it's multiple things. One is that the business model in itself was very, very strong. The returns that we were getting was very strong. So you have to have a very strong business model. Right? That is one. Now, the same business model could have been there with 5 other people also. Right? And they must have thought about it, what we need to do. Now, executing this business model and expanding, that comes with strong leadership, management, and the willingness and the ability to say we have to grow rapidly, and putting all our energy, effort, pushed into that whole space. And plus you have to you needed the right kind of partners to grow. So at different points of time, you had Warburg, which was a great partner to have. Then you had APG, which is still a great partner. Then we went public. So you have to have. So your model needs to be strong. You need to be organized in a way to growth. You have to. So what happens is that when you grow, you have to grow your talent also.
True.
You can grow, you can put hotels, but you need to grow your talent also. So you have to organize the entire company to handle this growth. So I think I kind of did all of it, and that's what has happened. So if you look at growth comes from owned hotels. Now, from owned hotels perspective, so we have 87 hotels, I said, right, at 8,500 rooms. Out of that, we have 41 hotels which we own, and 46 of the others are hotels of others which we manage.
Correct.
So that's the asset light side of business, where we are kind of managing other hotels. So in the future pipeline, I have at least 20 hotels that I need to 22 hotels that I need to open, which is already signed. This is apart from the new signings that I will do.
Great.
So I think so that is what the growth story has been. And so today we are the 6th largest hotel company in India and the 3rd largest in terms of ownership of assets in India. And then from a 17% inventory share or market share that we call, we want to grow to our 20% market share in the next 2 years, and hopefully ramp that up further in the next 4-5 years. That is our aim. So to answer your simple question, it's not one thing that leads to growth. You have to have a strong business model, and you have to stick to it and try and improve it all the time. You have to be able to. There will be ups and downs. So resilience then becomes very, very critical. There will be downs, like this last 2 years has cost a death to many hotel companies.
Yes.
So survival instinct is critical. The leadership is critical. Growing the talent is critical, and organizing this whole piece to ensure that growth happens is critical. So it's all together. It's just not one dimension then we can look at for this growth. So it's like many parts need to come together for this to happen.
Yes, excellent. The way you put it was very nice. Just for the benefit of my viewers, I'll just put it into 2 simple pointers which I noticed. One is that treat growth come success not as a bonus. You don't say that success is okay, success is great, is a goal, but growth is a bonus. No, that's the wrong attitude. Success come growth must be the primary goal. Number 1. Secondly, grow your talent. Maybe that is what happened to other groups which could not grow as fast or as well or as successfully for the customer in the customer's viewpoint, because they failed to grow their talent, which is what I noticed in every other brand or every other company where I visited, that growth of talent is lagging behind as far as growth of properties goes. That is actually
you should grow your talent 2x your actual growth. Only then you will survive.
Absolutely. The ammunition has to be much more than the number of guns that you have. Otherwise, you're finished. So, in a shootout. Wonderful. Yeah. So, there is another concept of a successful hotel. Of course, as a hospitality leader, you might, enlighten me that could be a elite concept. Maybe, in the 80s and the 90s, you had these signature food and beverage outlets of the Taj and the Oberoi groups. They were identified, those groups were identified with those signature outlets, which became no longer the case when visiting hotels or dining out became much more common. Let's say the Taj President, where I was a regular visitor, oh God, every week I used to be there. So there was the Thai Pavilion over there, the ground floor. So that used to be an exceptional outlet, exceptional, and that used to be a signature outlet of the Taj Group. And I remember the service and the everything about the Taj President was top notch those days. 10 years later, it was no longer so. So that's the concept of signature food and beverage outlets. Is it an elite concept where people, as you said, in the 70s, 80s, the concept of more business class and less economic class, the people who used to visit 5-star hotels were way above the social fabric. Now it is no longer so. Is that an outdated concept, or is it still on, and chains like Lemon Tree will aspire to it or maybe create it after a while? Can you just enlighten me on that?
So in fact,
vis-a-vis the branding.
Being an ex-Taj, I love the Taj Pavilion, the Thai Pavilion myself. So it's got great food, and there's used to be a chef called Ananda Solomon, who created this. So I'm saying let me zoom out and see what has happened in the food and beverage industry. At least the dining out space. Uh, the earlier the places to go were these five-star hotels, or you had um, nothing else to go to, right? You didn't have options to go, right? So it was a similar case of what I was talking about, where all of them were in five-star hotels, and then there was nothing standalone except for some Sagars or some other restaurants, very few in number.
True.
Cut to today.
That was the constraint, yeah.
So cut to today, there are many restaurants, standalones today, who are operating very good restaurants, very good restaurant chains today who are operating, whose sole business is to do that piece.
Yes.
1 minute, sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So what has happened? This industry has become extremely competitive. The second thing that has become is its niche focus groups that are coming. Now, from a hotel perspective, we had earlier believed that the investment in a room delivers a better operating profit than investing in a restaurant. The margins in the restaurants business is very less. And today it's become even less because it's fiercely competitive. And if you add the distribution layer to the third-party distribution amounts that you're giving, you're just, it's a dog eat dog.
Barely surviving.
Very. So if you look at all the capex that you invest and the people that you invest and the opex that you invest, the margins are very less. This has happened to many of the five-star hotels. All the restaurants are slowly having lesser and lesser footfalls, except for a few. And the customers are today wanting to eat out casual, the casual places. There are, interesting concepts which are coming out. So hotels then need to reinvent themselves.
Correct.
Either you decide, there are two options. Either you decide that, boss, this space I will use better as a banqueting space, and instead of having 6 restaurants earlier, I would have 2. I'd rather have this space for banqueting, and I will just manage with these two restaurants, because customers are today have many options to either order or go out and eat. That's one way of looking at it. The other way is to say, I want to reinvent my restaurant and do something phenomenal there. Some hotel companies are doing that also. The third is that some hotel companies are saying, okay, let me get an outsider and I lease out my space to the outsider and let him run the space. So these are a couple of options that the big chains are also looking at expanding. So that is what has happened to the food and beverage industry. In our belief, we have 2 restaurant brands, which is Republic of Noodles, which is a Pan-Asian brand, and there's an Indian restaurant called Kebab Theatre. Wherever there is an opportunity which can give you return, we would invest. We would invest in that restaurant, in that space, where depending on the market. If the market is there, we will invest. But for us, we have to give return. So I will be very careful about every square foot that I spend my money on and where I get return. So this is how we see restaurants growing. It will be a competitive industry with all these margins. So we'll have to be careful how much space you allocate. You earlier in all those days, you had some 150 cover specialty restaurants and stuff. It's impossible to do that kind of spaces today.
Your first job, the Taj West End. I remember having breakfast in that place. I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I used to regularly visit Bangalore in the year 2000, 2001, 2002. I was a country manager for the world's largest B2B company, Commerce One, and I was a regular there. My goodness, I remember the space that we had in Taj West End, and 10 years, 12 years later, it had shrunk. They had this thing developed into a smaller kind of a space where just the breakfast was the focus and not the ambience and everything. But yes, amazing.
Yeah, so that's what has happened. It's a competitive industry. You'll have to find a slot for yourself and maybe reinvent some of the food and beverage concepts if they want to sustain. Or then you, like in foreign countries, you go, the restaurant spaces are very less because there is enough eating options. You go to a Paris, you go to the best hotel in Paris, you'll have one restaurant there, and the remaining you go to the beautiful, cafes which are there outside. People eat in restaurants, and there are so many Michelin star restaurants outside for you to eat. So that is an option where people can think about.
What about concept advertising for your brand? Is it necessary now, or is it is it not really necessary, and the customer would rather have a good experience rather than look at the concept branding? For instance, the advertising of Oberoi properties, of the Vilas properties, for instance, something similar. Is it in the pipeline, or maybe you are not treading that path? Can you enlighten us on that?
So I think our view has been that our customer is our biggest advertiser.
Yes.
Right. So that is our belief. But saying that, we'll have to do it for certain products, like an Orica brand that we launched in Udaipur initially for communication, because it's a new brand that we launched. So we had to communicate that, so that we advertised a bit during that time. But our predominant philosophy has been that if you do a great product and a great service at a great value, then customers will talk about it. Today, customers is your biggest advertiser. So I would look at it from that perspective. That is what, but it's critical. Like Coorg, we launched an Orica, which is a new brand. So we are putting a lot of money there for advertising. So that's needed because it's a new market, new brand. If the brand becomes a little more stronger, then we will do normal below the line advertising, straight communication with customers instead of doing mass.
Wonderful. So on that note, I think we really enjoyed this discussion. And
thank you, Debasish. Thank you for your time.
Excellent. And really, I feel energized just to talk to you about this wonderful brand that you have built. And I wish it the greatest of success in the next, let's say, 50 years to come. And all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And when you're going to Bandhavgarh, let me know next time when you're going to Bandhavgarh.
Definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Debasish.
Bye.